Hello and welcome to another episode of the Big Money Stylist podcast. If you have listened or watched part of this show, you're like, Danielle, where are you? Well, I decided to, actually I didn't decide, but my husband and I turned in his office into a podcast studio. So we're actually recording live inside of our home. And today is going to be a spicy show. Number one, because I brought my husband back into my education, into my company, and he was honestly a big part of birthing the education about 5 years ago and adding a lot of fire and spice and all the things nice or not so nice.
Nice.
Not so nice. And then we kind of built a lot of structure. And then I was telling, we actually have another guest today, Carlos.
Hello, guys.
Carlos is one of my educators for Natural Beauty Rose. And it was funny, we did a training today and I was like, I looked at Carlos and I go, the academy just got boring. Just got a little bit boring. We need to spice it up.
I think it got a little mushy.
Mushy, really?
Mushy. Like mushy,
like
but
stale?
like squishy. Like, oh, cute. Like pink bunnies.
Oh, but pretty pink bunnies.
They were pretty pink bunnies, but we wanted slaying bunnies.
We wanted like bunnies with
Producing,
like fire hair
yes.
and like a gown or
Producing
something.
bunnies.
Producing bunnies. Well noted. Thank you so much. So I brought back my spicy bunny.
I'm your spicy bunny.
I brought back.
That's my nickname.
I brought back my hubby because he knows how to get things moving. And I felt like in the last couple years, things were good, but they got a little fluffy and stuffy and pink bunny-ish. So we needed to bring back a little bit of the warrior-esque vibe to DKW Styling Academy. And here we are.
So we brought back the original student.
The original one.
One
Carlos.
of them.
Every time I think about Carlos's original journey, I'm sorry, I have to say it.
Share it. You know what? I think it's time for you to just come out and share it. Just say it.
We wine and dine our students, and we went to that nice beach club for lunch, and then we do this thing where we're like, we want them to like have freedom, and we're like, you're gonna go do a live on the beach. And back then, we all drink wine at lunch. Now we don't do that so much in education, but
There's reasons why we don't do it anymore.
But they're literally,
You guys are welcome.
literally, I look over and I'm like, is that Carlos? Is he on the lifeguard tower? I was like,
And I was exactly doing that
Yes.
that motion that you just did, where I was
Yeah.
like looking to the horizon.
literally,
you
and
know?
I was like, I like him.
That's how I started my journey with you guys.
Literally, I just think of the lifeguard tower, and I was like, he's funny.
It's Carlos.
And here
Here
we
we
are.
are running a podcast yet again. We've been doing this podcast for a long time. Danielle didn't want to do a podcast at all. When we originally started podcasting, she was like, this is stupid. I don't want to do it. By the way, just so you know, that's typically how
usually how it
things start
works.
around here. I say, let's do this.
I'm
Danielle
very
says,
set in
that's
my
Because
stupid.
ways.
it wasn't her idea.
You know this how this works already.
I may be gay, but I'm still a man, so I know how women work.
Okay, so we have a special opportunity because we got you here. So my agenda inside of today's show is not just to like walk down the path of like typical conversation here with
Right.
on the show about big money stylists, but really also a chance for us to kind of tell your story. Being here as one of the trainers, also one of our founding partners, which some of you are going to find out what this means here over the next couple of months. What that means coming into Academy Convention, we have 9 to 10 women a week applying for open enrollment into the Academy. We've got virtual events as well as convention events that are occurring. We've been doing things back in the day. You know, $5,000 a ticket to come play, $15,000 for academies. Prices that blew people's mind in the beginning. Go back, Carlos, for yourself. I mean, you've been around the game in the training space with hair. You've been around with color. You've sat as a platform artist for a lot of different brands over the years. How long you been in hair?
I've only been doing hair for 14 years.
I was like, what even brought you directly into hair?
We're not even we don't have enough time in this podcast, but something that a lot of people don't know is that I used to be a funeral director.
I knew that.
I remember that.
You knew.
I remember
Now
that.
you know.
Now I remember that.
So I started a passion for hair. Well, let me backtrack a little bit. I had very practical parents that said, you're going to college. No son of mine is going to be the typical gay, male hairstylist. Especially, my parents are still in Mexico. So it was just, they didn't want for me to become a stereotype. The Nelly Queen hairdresser with the cutoff,
You should
belly
then.
out.
You got the red bottoms. You're good.
Thank you. So it was really cool. So they said, go to college, do all these things, and then we'll talk about you either becoming an actor, was one of my things, dancing or whatever. So I did all the degrees. I took everything. I'm actually just hours away from having a master's in business. And I started in the medical field. I started doing all of the medicine, classes and whatever not. Didn't find any satisfaction. It had no purpose for me. So then from there, I went into the life insurance business. That's how I met Amanda Kelly's parents, actually, one time. And then from there, I went on and I'm like, you know what? Like, enough. The whole time, even as a small kid in Mexico at the age of 5, 6, 7, I would get in trouble for having a round brush and a blow dryer and doing my cousin's hair. And my mom would always be like, no, little boy does hair like that. Well, it's kind of like the whole gender role thing going on. And being, growing up Mexican, they were like trying to like, if I can only just keep him away from being gay kind of thing, right? So it didn't work out for them. I'm still here, still gay. And I transitioned from being in the medical world and all these different unsatisfying jobs to me, to where I eventually said, you know what, Mom, Dad, thank you for spending the hundreds of thousands of dollars into my education, but I need to be happy. So they gave me their blessing and they said, but we're not going to pay for it. We're not going to support you in this venture. And I went up to my husband, after going into a very amazing interview for a sales position. And the whole time the guy was interviewing me, at the very end, I'm like, okay, I know where I'm headed. I know that I have a different vision. And it was right then and there that I had this epiphany, right? And the guy's question was like, well, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? And I just maybe silent for like those 5 to 10 seconds that feel like an eternity, right? And I looked at him dead in the eye and I said, I will have your job. And I don't know what triggered him, but he's like, you're hired. Like, we want you. And we're talking the base pay salary to this, back in 2007 when I was looking into this job was like $125,000. And he's like, you got it. And I said, well, no, hold on. I still have other interviews I want to go to. I want to go ahead and play the game. He's like, what do you want? We need people like you. You're like, this is your job. We want you. And I was like, you know what? No. He said, is it more money? I said, well, that always helps, right? He's like, this can be yours for $175. That's my max limit. That's your base pay. You have all of this, company card, credit card, blah, 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 and all these different things. And I just like left that meeting. I said, you know what? Thank you very much for your time. I'll get back with you. I'll let you know where I'm at. I remember shutting the door behind me and immediately calling my husband. And Tim was like, so did we get it? Did you get the job? And I said, yeah, we got the job. And sad. I was sad. I was saddened. But I also saw Tim's vision of me and all of these things like 401k, paid vacations, all of these different things that we were going to have, all these little bubbles were just immediately popping over him. Like, we're never going to have this. We're never going to have this financial freedom to buy cars, houses, whatever not. And it was then that I knew that I was now going to be successful. Like, it was my turn. I know that I had a God-given talent, which I can sell ice to an Eskimo. I have a passion for what we do for teaching, educating. I have a passion for doing hair and making people just look absolutely beautiful. And it was right then and there that I told him, I said, hey, babe, I'm going to beauty school. He was like, shit. Like, okay, let's do this.
Did he do hair at the time?
Oh, yeah. Tim has been a hairdresser now for 30-something years. Like, he's been in it for a longer period of time.
Was he part of the inspiration that guided you into the hair game?
Absolutely. Because even Tim, when I met him, he was already, bringing home about, well over $100,000. And I'm like, so there is money in this industry. So when my parents, fast forward all this different stuff, when my parents finally saw the salon, they stepped in. They see chandeliers. They see light, mirrors. They see the whole, how could you call it, the pompous salon, whatever. And my mom, trying to be funny, she's like, well, why didn't you tell us you wanted to do this the whole time? And we could have saved thousands of hundreds of dollars into your education. But fast forward, that's why I'm here. And this is what I do now.
So hair so from funeral director to salon owner, from salon owner to extensions. So Danielle, your pursuit of extensions was Oh, well, like maybe a little bit different. Carlos, we're going to talk about yours too, but what was it that had you even go down the path of extensions at all? Like long before natural beat arose, like who cares? There's a lot of different methods inside of hair. You
I've
just
shared
cut color.
I've shared my story a lot, and this is actually kind of how I started my brand. But I have the shittiest hair ever.
You don't say.
It's like the wind blows and it's like breaks. Like it's just I just have crappy hair.
Dandelion hair.
And it's funny, I actually never envisioned myself as being a hairdresser when I was older. Like I know a lot of people who do hair, like, oh, I always knew it. But you know, one thing that I remember when I was little is always like looking in the mirror and like putting my head back and being like, oh, if my hair could just get this long. Like I always wanted long hair. You know, the fairy princesses and everything always had this beautiful hair. So from the time I was little, I always had a short bob and short hair. So I would say I always had this want to experience this beautiful long hair. Like that was just something that I wanted. So immediately after I graduated hair school, I was like, okay, I'm going to get my hands on any type of education that's offered for hair extensions. And still to this day, extensions is not part of the curriculum in hair school, which drives me nuts.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know, because it's still, I was like trying to do a post tonight about it, and I was like, it's, even if you freaking decide to YouTube something, it's like people will only, they're paying like $500,000-$600,000, and yet they're like, oh, I got certified in an online 1.5 hour class. It's just like mind boggling to me that it's not incorporated into hair schools like it should be.
Well, and the sad thing is that they're actually cutting the requirements now for,
Yeah.
I know that the state of Texas cut back on the amount of hours for you to get your accreditation.
Yeah.
They're trying to they're trying to do away with our credits or becoming, what do we get, a certificate or whatever it is that we get at the end of beauty school, right? So they're trying to
license?
deregulate us, basically. Yes, thank you, a license. They're trying to deregulate. Even California, I think, cut back on their hours not long ago.
Yeah. And I don't really understand it, because like I know a lot of salons in LA, they compartmentalize their services.
Right.
But I truly love doing the whole thing start to finish.
Same.
And I love doing the cut, the color, the blending, the matching, like everything about it. And the best work comes from one artist, not from 5 people working on one person.
Right.
Like the end. Like I've worked in 3 different states and 12 different salons, and that's just like how you can get the best results with hair extensions. So kind of going back to my story, like I just felt like this was 20 years ago, and extensions, like they just looked bad. Like it was very like Britney Spears, like synthetic hair, like glue-in singles. Like my first
shoelace effects.
Yes,
left
but
and
that
right.
was like the standard. And my first set of extensions, I paid like $2,000 for. That was synthetic hair. They looked awful, and I was like, I had such a bad experience, but I paid so much, I made myself like keep them in. And that was the thing. As soon as I graduated hair school, I was like, I'm going to go learn anything on the marketplace. I started cold calling salons, asking what they were offering, pretending like I was a client, asking what they charged. Like I wanted to find out the best. And so for the first like probably like 8 years of being in the hair industry, all I did was like take extension courses, and then I would create some kind of hodgepodge on my clients. I was like a few tapes, a few glues, a few rows, and voila! Like it was like the scariest shit ever, because I just was like, oh, I was basically learning every method, because then I could say, if somebody's like, do you do tapes? I'm like, I do. But I was like, but I'm only going to do 4 here, and then I'm going to give you a row. But I could acquire all these clients because I could say I did all these extensions, right? So that's kind of like my journey. And then I got to this place where I was like, I don't like doing tapes. I don't like doing these sticky glue ones. I don't like doing I tried everything, and I was like, I don't really like these. And on my hair, I only like the hand-tied hair. I like I started like playing around with like placement and shaping and all that kind of thing. And over time, I realized I had like created this system. And every salon I worked in, because we moved every 2 years for some reason, every salon I worked in, people were always leaning over my shoulder saying, can you teach me? Can you teach me? And back then, like, it was just like, yeah, come lean over my shoulder. That's fine. And then I got to the point where I was like, I'm tired of people leaning over my shoulder. And then when we had lost everything back in the market, when the market crashed, that's when Garrett's like, you are already teaching people. Like, let's create a brand and let's get this moving. So that's kind of how, like, in a nutshell, how my story started. But I honestly created this because I just have crappy hair. And then I really elevated the brand of hand-tied hair when I needed money. Because it was like, it wasn't a thing. It was like tapes or glue-ins or great lengths or whatever it was. But like rows, people were like, I'll give you $100.
Well, there was kind of like, that was the cheap version of extension.
It was a cheap version of extension. I was like, I like these. I'm like, I didn't like the braids, but
oh,
yes.
absolutely.
Oh yeah,
because it wasn't as much work to put in.
Because there was not enough education backing it up.
You know what it is? It was because it was like considered like a weave, and like weaves were looked at as being cheap, and I was like, I'm like, I like these, but I changed this perception of being a weave was like the braided old school
Right.
ones, which I did those for a while. And then I was like, okay, if I market this as like a beaded system, then it's not like a weave, you know?
Right.
And that's what I liked in my hair. So it's kind of like, yeah, it needed a full revamp and rebrand based on like, yeah, like it was like people were just taught like, this is the one you want. And I'm like, it's not what I want.
How did you, Carlos? I mean, Danielle's pursuit was like extensions based on what her hair needs. How is it like as a man pursuing it when you don't have hair extensions, you don't need hair extensions, your hair looks fantastic, and you're not going to put any... I mean, we've had a couple of the guys in the academy put in MBR.
You thought about it for a second.
Yeah. And you know how long that lasted.
Yeah, you got it so long. You even permed it.
How did you...
My hair is not perm, bitch. It's naturally curled. We went through this.
Perm life.
I thought you permed
Perm
it.
life.
Oh, that's funny.
Okay, cool. So how did you even like, how did extensions show up on your radar? Danielle's was a pursuit of something based on like a problem she was having. You didn't have a problem with your hair. What was it that led you into extensions?
I've always been money driven. And I saw the opportunity that, okay, these people are paying a lot of money. So I don't have the hair loss. I don't have any of this. So for me, actually, to sell extensions was a little bit more challenging because I couldn't relate to people's pain. When it came to my hair is thinning, my hair is, this, that, and the other. But I could relate to the fact that there was money in their pocket and I had a product and I could give them that solution, right? So that's basically how I got started with the whole extension. And I've been an extensionist from day one.
Do you love, and I'll just ask you this while we're on this topic. I love, even if I was a guy and if I didn't have them in my hair, there's some women that you work on, like the transformation, like they cry in your chair.
Girl, that's the feeling that I love. When a lot of people come or when people get high and they look for that high all over again, NBR gives you that high every single time.
Yeah.
Because you do see, and this is something that we talk about a lot at the salon, is that it's amazing to see these women almost walking in deflated, not sexy. Like, that there's a certain perception about their image and everything. And they're just like shoulders down, shrugged, like, this is it. If this doesn't help me, like nothing will. Right. And by the time you're done with them, it's like,
you're like,
boobs
there you are.
out, chin up. It's like it's showtime kind of feeling.
Yeah.
And I love it.
Yeah.
You do have the ones that cry, and then you almost want to cry with them and be like, but you don't want to seem like, right? You don't want to seem like I was the almighty that just gave you life
but
back
the power
again.
Of hair.
But it is. There's an amazing feeling to be able to make another human being feel and not just feel, but like see that they were always beautiful.
Yeah.
Past the hair. Yeah. Because they were always beautiful. The hair was just like, okay, this is the frame, but you were always fucking beautiful.
You're like, there you are.
Right.
It's funny because I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, yes, I do it. I'm very like numbers and kind of similar to you. I'm like, what's going to make me the most behind the chair? But it was like, I got the best of both worlds. It's like you can make great money and then like the transformation in your clients. I'm like, this is why I love it. I love seeing the transformation and it's great money.
It did take me a little bit to connect though. On the level of, like I was telling you, like the pain, I didn't quite understand the pain. But as I started to see it and the more women I was working with, I was like, okay, now I'm starting to understand.
Yeah.
When you had clients call or clients' husbands call you and they're like, dude, I don't know what you did to her. He's like, I don't know if you guys had an affair. What you did to her. Like, I don't know if they thought it was like the Sohan with their Sohan or whatever with their wives. But they would just drop credit cards, and they're like, "Here you go, like whatever monthly
they got laid
thing."
When the wife came home,
the guy had dinner that night.
The guy
ate that night, and it was like it was the best one to see my wife feeling so empowered.
Yeah,
to see that woman that felt crushed and broken at one point to literally find that. I guess feminism would be the word. Her sexy. Thank you. That's a little better. To find her sexy, I think that's the feeling that I love. Now. It's amazing that it's followed up with money, right? And being able to produce and going into all of these different things that we do. And, but yeah, I think that's the main thing that I love is just seeing females or seeing women so empowered by something as simple as their crown, which is their hair.
Yeah. Hair's a big deal.
There's a piece in business that's interesting for the stylist listening is like anytime that you're selling or you're marketing or presenting something to the marketplace, like there's always like the dream outcome that's being promised. which we're talking transformation with hair. And then there's all the elements that come into it, which is, okay, well, how long is it going to take for me to get this outcome, right? So I'm sitting and my weight looks like this, and I want to be a bikini competitor like Danielle was, and I'm like, okay, well, the dream outcome's here, but then there's like this mountain of work from where I am to be able to get there. And so the higher the work or the amount required of time, energy, money invested to be able to get to that outcome, it makes it more difficult. The second piece with this too is that like the probability of success, right? So maybe I go down the path, same thing with fitness. Maybe I pull it off, maybe I don't. Maybe because I might have to go through like losing weight at first, and then I've got to go through building muscle, and then I've got to deal with the skin issues from losing the weight, and I've got all these things that might be in the way to pull this off. And then the last piece with this is like, what's my financial output for going there? And if you look at Natural Beauty Rose, the craziest thing from the outside, being a guy, also I don't have Natural Beauty Rose, watching what Danielle went through, knowing her hair journey with herself, but then looking at it from a businessman and looking at it which is why I couldn't understand why artists were even doing anything but extensions, and why they weren't doing why at all, even with Natural Beauty Rose. In 3 to 4 hours, you have the ability to step in and deliver something that is predictable. You look like this in 3.5, 4 hours, you're going to look like this every single time. Like it's like the guarantee, the probability of success of arriving at the dream outcome of that beauty is nearly guaranteed. The timeline to pull it off is 4 hours. It's not 19 months of fitness training.
Right.
It's not whatever it is. Like Natural Beauty Rose, it's not boob jobs. It takes surgery and recover. It's kind of like eyelash extensions, putting the eyelashes in. That's a short, fast one too, but it doesn't have nearly the impact. Like, I don't think there's anything on a woman that you watch that can change them more than what their hair does in a short period of time. Like, the emotional value of Natural Beauty Rose on a client is massive, hence the reason why the money.
Right.
And why women are willing to pay for it, skip their mortgage payment, skip their car payment.
Oh, it's amazing what they skip paying in order to get that hair.
Yeah. I used to feel bad. I would have clients or like literally like school teachers and things would be like, I have a jar where I save money. And I'd be like, she'd be like, I don't need to pay my car payment. And I'm like, I kind of feel bad, but then I'm also like, hey, at least I know what you value.
Exactly.
Well, in the car, if you look at it, like the car, yes, gets her transport A to B, but car doesn't make her feel.
She'd rather have her hair. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
It's like, I feel really bad, but you look great.
But you learn how to get past that, too.
Yeah.
You learn how to get past that.
Yeah.
So you two are both dealing with pricing on this, right? So we're talking about, people hear that idea. We even have students now that are in the $3,000 to $5,000 for Natural Beauty Rose hair extensions. Like this is now common. $1,500, $2,500, $3,000, $5,000. I'll share with this in the business world, in the business world I'm in, about what you girls and guys are being able to charge and what you're able to do with Natural Beauty Rose. They start doing the math real quick. 3 clients a day, 3 times a week, but $450,000 a year. What the fuck? I'm like, yeah.
But we're the dumb ones. We didn't know how to make that money, did we?
So how did you guys, when you guys look at the pricing and you look at what we're requesting a person invest in this, hairstylists, a lot of times we even think that you're ripping people off by doing it. Carlos, talk about like your view and your perspective about this value creation and pricing model. And Danielle,
I was going to say your background probably with being in business made you probably step into hair with a little bit more clear mindset and frame.
And I did. And I think that's one of the things that my husband always, whenever it's anything business, money related, he's like, Carlos, what are we doing? Because he's pretty much an artist. He is an artist. And I think I stepped into this knowing that I was an artist, but I also wasn't able to.
You had a foundation.
Yes, and I was also a CEO, and I also was able to be. What's my third one? Artist, CEO, and hustler. Right. So I had a really good defined triangle going into it, not knowing that that's what it was. Right. But I was very. I don't know. Charging these numbers to me was not like. I think. In
the beginning, like, did you ever have like in the beginning, did you ever kind of like seem very like certain and confident? Like in the beginning, were you kind of like,
no,
you were like, this is where my overhead is. These are my numbers. This is what I have to charge. This is what I have to make.
Exactly. I knew what I had to charge. I knew what I had to make, but I had already been doing other extension methods. I had already been doing great lengths and all these other, strand by strand fusions and tapes and whatevers. Spit-ons, the typicals. Spit-on extensions, glubiars, all of those different trambiars, all of them. Trampiars. But anyways, I came into this game knowing that one, I was already older. So to step into it,
A little more mature.
a little bit more mature.
Yeah.
People, when you carry yourself as a stylist, a little bit more like that.
Yeah, you're not coming in like an 18-year-old.
Right,
Like,
it's
please
like-
give me $5,000. They're like,
right,
what?
right.
Yeah.
And I always, one of the things that I walked into this knowing was that I'm not lying to them.
Mm-hmm.
This is nothing more than a business transaction,
Right.
which a lot of stylists hate the fact that I call
It sounds cold, but
it sounds
you're
cold
not a
and
cold
calculated,
person,
but I'm not.
Yeah.
But you also have those people that you still connect with, and you're
Mm-hmm.
like, I will still go have a drink with this client.
Right.
And we have those that you're like, you shake their hand and you're like, see you in 8 weeks.
Yeah.
And they're a business transaction. You have something and they have something, and we barely, all we do is
Exchanging
swap
services.
goods.
Yeah.
Right. So anyways, I think that for me, it was a little bit easier going into this game of extensions. One, because I was already kind of charging those prices. Secondly,
Yeah, because you had done, when you start doing the strand by strands and you already like have it conditioned in your mind that this is going to be a $2,000 to $3,000 client.
and it was taking you,
And it was
that
taking
long.
you 8 hours.
So for me, it was a lot easier to answer your question. It was a lot easier for me to be like very black and white, very transparent. Like, this is going to be $2,000. It's going to be $2,500. And if you want it, great. If you don't, next. Like, no emotions attached. And I think that that's one of the things that I've been able to do as a hairdresser is disassociate myself from the feeling of rejection.
Right.
Being able to disassociate my feelings from like, oh, she didn't like me. It had to be my hair.
This is going to sound really bad, but is it because you're a man too? Because I feel like women have a harder time doing this.
I highly disagree with that. Highly disagree with you.
Why do you believe that?
Because in our salon, I have created a cave of wolves. Everybody, regardless of sex, gender, belief, whatever, everybody has the capability of producing, right? And it shows. Whenever we talk about retail in my salon, it's not an option. Like, you have to, and we give markers. You have to grow 20%. You have to do blah, 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 blah. And we give them, and we break it down for them.
Yeah.
Like, you want to make $300,000, you need to make this a quarter.
Right.
You need to make this a month. You need to make this a week. But guess what? Look at the tiny little number that you have to produce a day. They're like, oh, hell, I can do that.
Yeah.
But everybody sees the hundreds of thousands of dollars over their head, and they're like, there's no way. I will never be that
But
person.
when you break it down.
But when you do, same thing with retail. That's why you were asking, is like, do you think that because you're a man? No. I have some major...
It's because he's a man.
No, it's not.
We're men just outclose women. Period.
No, we're not going to go there.
Women like they close.
I mean,
okay.
I hate to remind you what I produce, but
Right?
I
You
can.
did close me.
There you go.
I mean, look, Carlos, we're just gonna call it what it is. Guys are just better overall at life.
I still deal with a lot of bitches at work, so we're gonna not go there, Darren.
Yeah, I'm just gonna not respond.
We know you're kidding.
I didn't
we
bring
know
it up. I
he's
didn't bring it
kidding.
up. Carlos was just trying to say what he was not able to say. I was just clarifying.
Well, you
We
heard
wanna
me
say
wrong,
what-
friend.
Okay, you two. So it was never. I understand that. Here's the struggle, and I wanted to share this really quick. Why? Because I'm very business savvy in the similar mindset, hustler like you, good at sales. Like, I don't think of it as something as like I'm selling somebody. I'm
Right.
like, this is a great product. I think you're going to benefit. You should get this.
Right.
Right. Like, it's not really. It's kind of like black and white. It's like, here you have shitty hair. Here's how MBR can benefit. Here's the solution. Right. In the beginning, I think my hard thing was like having done Great Lengths and other types of extensions where it was like, well, yeah, it took, like 6 hours for a client, and it was like, it was already branded and positioned as like a luxury service of hair
Right.
extensions. Now all of a sudden I had a hard time being like, who do you think you are? You are trying to sell these hand-tied extensions. Nobody knows what hand-tied hair is. It's the lowest selling hair in the marketplace. Nobody wants rows. If you call any salon in the freaking 5 states around you, nobody's paying more than $50 a row. Like, how are you gonna talk people into now paying thousands of dollars? And so that was like, took a lot for me to be like, okay, you got this. Like I was kind of like paving my own path of like, hey, this is what works on my hair. I remember getting on so many consultations with women and them just saying, well, I've tried this and this, and what makes yours different? And I had to like hold the frame of like, hey, you know what? This is what I've done. This is what I've certified in. This is what I've tried. But this is why I like MBR. This is why it works on my hair. This is what I've seen with clients. And it was really hard in the beginning for me to charge the prices just because it was like looked at as so cheap.
Right.
But I kind of was like, no, I have to like hold this frame. And so even though I feel like I would have no problem charging, $2,000-$3,000 for other extensions, I had a really hard time elevating the brand or elevating hand-tied hair extensions or any kind of sewn in.
Well, I like where you're going because this is actually something I just had in our salon. We just had our first of the year meeting. We have every single Wednesday, we have Trademark Academy. And I make stylists from, whether you're out of beauty school and you've been doing hair for 30 years, we all come together and we learn together. And I think that's been a very strong secret to our success within our business. But what I'm hearing from you is one of the things that I just taught is that you are selling something, but you're telling them why you're selling it. You're selling the why, not the how, right? You're selling why. So people can relate to whys. You can tell people all day long, this is shampoo. It cleanses your hair. Done. Or you can tell them, this is an amazing shampoo that is going to cleanse your hair. It's going to go down to the capillary level and blah, 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 blah. But I'm going to tell you, it's been an amazing shampoo in my hair. It's given me a lot of vibrancy and shine. You're telling them the why you're selling it to them.
Right.
Right. And that's exactly how you started in this industry. That's how you started breaking so many barriers, is because you started relating, you started giving that passion to these people or that pain.
Yeah.
Right. You were selling the pain. And during the pain, you were telling them why you were selling them these extensions. So people could have gone and bought extensions from anybody.
Yeah.
But the fact that you were selling them a why,
Right.
now they can relate to you.
Well, this is like one of the reasons why I always tell artists, like even inside the academy, I'm like, never be afraid to share your pain and your story, because that's how I started my brand. I started getting on YouTube and been like, I have
By
this
being vulnerable.
Yeah, just being like, I have shitty hair. You want to see my hair with no extensions? And people are like, and
That's always a great
showed
reminder.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's always a great reminder to see that vanilla yellow cake mix.
Hey, you know what?
Highlights that she used to have.
My 4 inches of bleached out hair.
Yes.
That's my only option, I was
Right?
told.
And Garrett's Guy Fieri look.
Yeah,
It was
I
amazing
know.
too.
Yes. But those back, I mean, you started the YouTube show and the blog for DKW back in 2000 and 2009, 10,
It was
2010.
right. Ruby was a baby, so
So it was 2000,
I'm like, well, how old is she?
2000, and like 2011.
2011, yeah.
2011 you started, so like over a decade ago, you're starting to publish. You're shooting videos from your bathroom, from long before it was easy, long before the editing, long before Instagram apps, like all the ability to filter, all your photoshopping now so easily done from the fingertips of your cell phone. All this began, and Carlos, you were back in the day too. And there's so many artists now that have got like they're born into a game where it's so easy now to execute on branding and marketing and to make yourself look great. Do you guys feel like there's going to come a point, Danielle, I'll start with you on this, where it's like the quality of your photos is no longer going to be the differentiator?
I feel like it's already shifting that way.
I think it's already
it's
there.
like it was like your stuff had to be so perfect, and now it's like we lost the realness.
Absolutely. Everything became too pretty.
Too pretty, yeah. And that's why I think reels are so trending, because people want to see like what is this like in person.
They're a little more raw.
Yeah, they're a little more raw, and it's funny because it's like I still love pretty photos, and I think you need that. But yeah, I think people are tired of seeing pretty photos, and it's going back to like we want to just see the realness.
It's almost going back to, I think I want to see a little bit more of a shitty background versus something so pretty and clean. Right?
I want to see some McDonald's bags
like
and
they want to, and that's why we're such
Yeah.
a society, unfortunately, nowadays that is so addicted to reality TV.
Yeah, yeah.
Because for as real as the Kardashians can get, or the Real Housewives or whatever, it's really not reality. It's still filtered truth,
Very
right?
filtered.
Yeah.
Very filtered truth.
Yeah.
But they make it seem in a way where it's very raw and transparent. And I think that that's something that we need to bring into our markeking.
Yeah.
Bring it into our reels and whatever,
Yeah.
to where it seems like it's real, but guess what? It was
looks
still
pretty.
somewhat staged.
Yeah. And
right?
then I've kind of been teaching this from the beginning. I'm like, it's got to be pretty and it's got to be like real, like both of those factors. That's why it's like you need to get on and tell your story and talk, because people need to see if they even like your vibe. Like if I saw just your salon and didn't know you, I might be intimidated.
Do you know how many times we've actually heard clients tell us that?
Yeah, I'm like, and not because I wouldn't pay, and not because I don't love a beautiful salon, but I also like want to feel like I'm not just another butt in the seat. Do you
They
know what I mean? I don't
always
wanna be
thought that we were
shuffled
too
through.
bougie. Like,
Yeah.
you guys have chandeliers,
Yeah.
and I see people with champagne and blah, blah.
But
I'm
like when you share your stories, I'm like, okay, you still look bougie, but like you're doing funny shit, right?
But you
So
have
it's like
to.
a mix.
Like
yeah.
our clients, oh my gosh, they love, and we
Yeah.
have like Disco Saturday. We just had Disco Saturday, and I'm like, "Where's the champagne, bitches?"
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I walk into the salon, and they're like, "There's Carlos."
So you would be like
make
my
it fun.
salon that I'd want to go to. I'd be like, "Okay, they
know their shit.
They know their shit. Their work's good, but they're not so stuffy.
But they're not, it's
Like,
not
it's
me
not
walking
even-
over. It's like, "Welcome to this salon."
No,
you know,
it's like personable.
with my fake
It's-
accent,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Welcome.
But pretending to be from I don't
It
know
feels
wherever.
personable. It feels fun. It feels like somewhere I'd want to go. And so that's like one of the things I tell the artists. I'm like, keep it real. And the only thing you're doing by not sharing who you are is not getting more clients that want to sit in your chair.
They can relate to you.
They can relate to you. They like you. Like that's. I'm like I try. Even now, I'm like tell people. I'm like I literally still to this day throw myself under the bus. I'm like I have shitty hair.
It's the best thing to do.
I have toddler hair.
It's the best thing to do. I think honesty in our industry is it's key. It's Bible.
Yeah, it's how to get more leads that actually like are a good fit in your chair.
So
Absolutely.
how have you guys made this shift to a focus not just on doing hair, but also a desire to serve your industry? Right? This is not you don't have to do this. It's like you could do a lot of different things. There's plenty of people making money in hair. There's plenty of people making money in financial services. Don't go teach everyone how to be successful in financial services or how to be successful. Plenty of people successful in fitness that don't go teach other people how to be successful in fitness. Yet Val was your coach, and here you two are. You both make money. You both can make great money by yourselves. You could shut your salons down and just have a boutique salon with one assistant, make great money by yourselves doing hair. But both of you chosen a different path, which is a path of educating and a path of like serving and giving and at times taking the stabs in the back from doing it.
Oh my gosh.
Carlos, talk about the desire for you to be an educator and why. And then Danielle, same question.
You know, one of the reasons why I continue in education is because it's something that you both have actually spoken about. I don't have children. I may have nieces and nephews, but there's legacy. And by every single artist, every single person in our salon that we touch on teaching them how to become more successful. I mean, I teach them, we bring in financial advisors and they're like, okay, guys, you need to start with a 401k. If I knew then what I know now, I would be retired because I would have saved every single penny. I would have invested correctly. You know, we just last week, it just very serendipitous. I ended up buying a rental home. A client came in. She's like, Carlos, I have this house. And I'm like, oh, funny enough, I just spoke to my lender. And she's like, done. Within 78 hours, 20 minutes into this conversation, there was a letter of intent for me to purchase this home. 20 minutes. The Carlos that now is, that I have in my salon, the Carlos that is leading, the Carlos that is, teaching them is the one that also lives by what he's teaching. Right. So the only place that I do fail, and this is something that I keep telling you, I don't know if this is just me protecting myself, but I'm a work beast. Like I love making money. I think that for me, it's almost euphoric every time I close a deal. When I hear a no, it's like, oh no, it's not no, honey. I'll be seeing you in a couple of weeks. I'm like, you'll be back. It is. It's a total high. But anyways, why I do it is because, again, I want to hand it over. I want to see, like, hand over that baton is like, what I teach you, I want you to go and run with it. And I genuinely mean it. I've lost 2 stylists that unfortunately, and if they're listening, I would always say something like, Carlos, one of the things that I've always said, and you guys have heard me say this before, is that I much rather people say, thank you, Carlos, for seeing me grow, pointing down versus pointing up and saying, fuck you, Carlos, for never letting me grow. That's my legacy. If I don't see people going through life and saying like, that's my mentor, that's who taught me, thanks to him, I took all the shortcuts that he told me, and now I am where he was, and it took him 15 years to get there. I did it in 5, right? I think that's our legacy. That's one of the reasons why I continue to educate. There's nothing glamorous about jumping on planes, going everywhere. We don't do it for the money because what we get paid doesn't pay the bills, right? That's kind of like that was a pair of shoes, nice, right? But it's not what is truly paying our bills. People don't go into education. A teacher does not become a teacher because she wants to go in wearing red bottoms. She goes into it for the impact, who she's going to grow, and that satisfaction that that's the legacy.
Is that something that you feel like has been with you for life? Like this desire to lead and inspire other people?
Yes, always.
I was gonna say,
Is that the same for you
Always.
too, Danielle?
yeah, I've always known I would be an educator. I didn't know what I've never
You didn't know
did-
the level at which you were going to do it?
yeah, and I was like, I don't want to be a teacher. But I always felt like I wanted to teach, which was weird. So then as I went down this path, I love it. And it's funny because I suffer with like the mom guilt. You know what I mean? Because I love inspiring others. I want I want to see them grow. Like that's a high for me, and it's a very rewarding high. And there's been times where I'm like, no, you're spending too much time at work, and you need to spend more time with your kids. And then this voice keeps coming back to me and is like, you have no idea the impact that you will make in these artists' lives. And that to me is like, okay, I need to like make sure I'm, spending time with my kids and
Right.
carving out time. But it keeps that mom guilt from creeping in and telling me like, who are you to think that you need to take all this time and put it into all these people? And I'm like, no, because I know the impact that I will have in doing so and the person that I'll become in the process. And that person, my daughters could now see. So for me, I'm like, I just know that's my path. Like it's almost like I'd chosen another life. I just was like, that's your mission. That's what you're doing. And guess what? You're going to do it being a hairstylist. Good luck. And I'm like, a hairstylist? Really?
You know what? I think that's where gender role becomes and defines you and I very differently. Because earlier you were trying to say, oh, it's easier for you to say you need these extensions because not just as a man, but a gay man, we come up to a girl and be like, you have shitty hair, girlfriend. Like,
Yeah,
come
yeah.
on, you need a couple of rows.
Right. It's hard.
Which I don't
yeah.
do it. I even teach my female stylists to have the same conversations with their guests.
Mm-hmm.
But something that I will never be able to relate to is the mom guilt, for example. So when I teach, I'm very like, I don't get it. I don't have children. I don't know dad or mom guilt. All I know is like me.
But do you have to be careful because like when I met you, I felt like you were more of a workaholic and now you seem like you have a little more balance, like at least with like family life and Tim.
Absolutely.
So that's the thing is like when you love what you do and I think if I didn't have kids, I would be like even more of like a workaholic. I'd be like, this fuels me. Like why? And even with Garrett, if he wasn't married to me, this man would just like, I don't know if he would sleep. Like literally, like I have to
Same.
I have to be like, babe, we need time for us. Like if you want a good relationship, you're going to have to like start coming home before 7 or 8 p.m. at night. You know what I mean? Like I can't get the last shitty version of Garrett. Like I need quality time.
You couldn't get the leftovers.
Yeah,
the
I
backwash.
don't want the leftovers.
You don't want the backwash.
And so I see that. Like I think that at least in my experience, successful men probably go the opposite direction where they love what they do so much they have to avoid burning out to continue at that level to progress and not like
And to
burn
continue
out.
to produce.
Yeah, and produce because if you're a man and you're in that kind of like survive mode, then you can't really create out of that mode either, right? And I will say, like being a mom, I have been able. Yes, I won't let that guilt dictate like who I can become or what I'm going to do. But also because I'm like, no, I'm a mom and I'm going to go spend time with my kids. I don't burn out as quickly as Garrett because he's kind of the primary worker in the family. You know what I mean? So I can't relate to like that burnout version because I am a mom and I have to be more involved with my children because he's working more than me. So I think for me, I'm like, I can respect that quality in high producing men and I've experienced it to some level, but but being a mom has made me where I haven't like pushed myself over the edge because I'm like, nope, my babies come first. And that's just like a mommy instinct. You know what I mean? It's just like, sorry, like I want to produce, but like in the end, like my babies come first.
Moms are wired completely
They are,
different.
yeah, totally.
And I will defend that to the ground.
Yeah.
Moms, women in general, are wired very differently.
There
from
literally
us.
is like a switch in us where it's like it's very primal. Like it's like you talk shit about my baby, I like go into like full primal mode. I'm like, what? Where did that lady come from? She's nuts.
Yeah, it's not just some women either. It's like
No,
all
it's like
women.
it's a very primal like mother thing. Like once you're
Well,
a
except
mom,
the shitty moms. I don't think they're wired that way.
okay.
Shitty moms that got on. All right, so we're rolling again. So here's my final question for the show. This is gonna be an interesting one. So I watch, getting to be in the world I am in business with as many entrepreneurs are going to be around with predominantly men. It was interesting to be coming into the hair world to see just how deep the game of permission to be great is lacking for artists. And the second piece is there's such a tendency to avoid conflict and people please. So let's talk about two of these topics. It'll give us a good 10, 15 minutes on this. Let's talk about the first one, though, which is this idea of permission, because it was the first thing that I could see from the outside when I came in to be part of the academy from my aggressive business world, and I'm watching all these amazing elite artists, and I'm like, who are you guys waiting for permission to be great? Like, who is this we and they in the hair industry that's told you that you cannot do A, B, and C? So, Dan, let's talk about you start and then come to Carlos, and then we'll start with Carlos.
Immediately, I'm going to throw you under the bus a pinch.
Because I love it when you do. Go
just
for
a
it.
scotch.
Not a pitch. Go full throttle.
Okay, full throttle. So when Garrett and I's relationship was not doing good, and I wasn't even sure if I was going to stay married to him, that's when I kind of looked at myself and I'm like, well, you are a hairstylist and these are your skills and this is what you have to utilize to make money. And I didn't look at it. I was like, I can't wait for Garrett to produce. Like, if we don't stay married, I want a good lifestyle, and I will have a good lifestyle, and I want to produce for my babies. And so I remember I started like solely, like it was a numbers game, like weeding clients out, just taking extensions, raising my prices. And I always joke around now that he's like, you were creating an escape route for yourself. And I honestly was, like, if I'm being honest. And for the first time I was like, oh shit. I mean, I had always like loved doing hair, but I was the true artist that was just like, whatever, if she doesn't tip me, if she does. Like, I wasn't as focused on the numbers at that time and the money. But when I had to be, I was like, okay. And so I started like paying attention to my numbers and my overhead and like all of this. And I was like, shit, there's some money in hair. And then I started like teaching classes, and remember.
How did you get the permission slip though, like to go?
Well, all I wanted to say is like I finally like realized that there was money in the hair industry, and I was like, wow.
Was it money that gave you permission?
Yeah, I was honestly in the beginning. I was like just seeing like my numbers, like getting out of my feelings and logically looking at like what do I need to charge? How many clients would it take to like? I was like very much like, okay, if I want to make 10 grand this month, how many extension clients is that? How many move ups is that? How many colors is that?
But did the math make sense because of the instability of our relationship and you having to provide?
I just felt like I was at rock bottom and I had nothing else to lose.
Okay, so there was a permission
slip. So
my
permission was like, you got nothing else to lose.
Okay, so you gave yourself permission, and I'm going to come back to you again on this, on what you continue, because you're not at rock bottom right now. We're hardly at rock bottom in a $25 million house in Orange County, driving $500,000 supercar.
But what I was going to say...
I want to be this rock bottom.
Yeah, this is a rock bottom.
I think you changed because you were saying, like, I see these women inside your hair events and you're like, you can make so much more, but you didn't believe until you started to see me believe in myself. Meaning there was one time, I remember we got in an argument and you kind of like said something that triggered me that was like demeaning to a hairstylist. And I was like, do you know what I
said a lot of things like that.
I know we weren't in a great space, but I remember saying, do you know what I fucking made the last month? And not only that, the last 6 months consistently that I've been stockpiling in a separate account. And I remember I told him and he was like,
I didn't believe you.
And I was like, okay.
I was like, verify.
And I was like, let me show you my bank account.
And I was like, holy shit.
And then all of a sudden he was like, so about this thing, we should, I was like.
So there, but back up. So there was a permission slip that you granted to yourself based upon the dire straits of your situation, which is I'm a mother of 2 children. My husband's an idiot. He may not be around. I may be on my own. I've got to provide. You hit back against the wall. Fuck it, I'm going for it. Permission slip granted. Okay, Carlos, what about for you? Like, what gave you permission to go? Was it the past experience in business that had you look at it from the math also? Something different?
You know, I wish I had a cool story.
Who is Carlos to, like, run a salon and tell people what to do and have chandeliers and champagne? Like, what is it that gives you this permission slip to keep going?
The bouginess.
Okay.
You know, for me, it was one of those things where I came into this a little bit later in life. You know, I was 27 when I finally became a hairdresser, and I didn't have time. Time was my enemy at this point. So I came in here just breaking down walls and doing and saying and taking all the classes that I could, and so that I could make myself a respectable hairdresser. So the permission for me was granted actually from my husband, because he's like, you need to take every single class. You're going to learn. Which he and I collided daily, because it was hard for me to take direction and instruction from my partner. And I'm like, we were equals in marriage. We were equals in partnership, but we weren't equals in how can I say it?
And hair skills?
In hair skills, in the technicality of hair,
Because
right?
you've been doing it longer.
A lot longer. I mean, if you tell him I need a precision haircut, man, that is your guy. Like he can cut a sharp line or whatever. And me, I'm like, we'll do some layers. We'll feather that in.
Yeah, feather that in.
But because I came into this game a little bit later. But I feel like I was granted the permission from day one, because he did say, Carlos, you're going to beauty school. Who my beauty school instructor is still one of my really, really good friends, a best friend actually. And he said, you're going to go to beauty school and you're going to fuck up hair in beauty school. So I did. I melted perms. I melted hair with highlights. I did everything that I could. I pushed everything to obviously pass its boundary. So my permission was granted to me very early. So I don't have this space of pain that a lot of people came into.
Yeah.
I don't have that. I've been very blessed. I've been very privileged in the world of hair. And I think that because I did come into this with a lot of natural ability and all these different things, I think it actually created Carlos a lot quicker than it.
I would say you didn't. It's like hairdressing was just like another skill for you, but it wasn't who you were. You had this background in, all these other areas that you dabbled into prior to that. So you were already kind of a businessman.
Right.
And then you wanted to use the craft and the tool of hair. So you kind of came in, like you said, older, but I think it's because you had a foundation of you're not just a hairstylist. You had been and done so many other things.
Right.
Whereas like I see a lot of hairstylists, like that's all they know. Right? They got into the industry at 18 years old, and especially artists that, like me, that have been doing hair for a minute, like it's just taught like, don't value yourself, you suck. And like, you didn't go to college because you flunked out. So we go in with this mindset of like, I suck. I'm just a stay-at-home mom that does hair on the side as a hobby, because we didn't have any other past business experiences building this character for ourselves.
Well, there's this stigma, because even for me and for my husband and I, for example, when I finally came to California and I took the class and I was doing all these different things, I told him, babe, I went back and I'm like, I drank the Kool-Aid. We need to restructure our business. We need to do this differently. He's like, oh, Carlos, like, because he had already dealt with Amanda, and we're like, here we go on a second one, like, what is going on in California that you guys come back so brainwashed and, whatever. It's maybe the sun. But anyways, he has always trusted me with business. Just like one day I came to him and I'm like, you're holding that blow dryer wrong. And he's like, how dare you? I've been a hairdresser now for 20 years. What are you telling me that I'm holding the hair dryer wrong? I said, you never hold a hair dryer by its nozzle. I said, it's not ergonomically designed to do that. You're going to fuck up your wrist a lot quicker and all these different things.
Looks cool.
And it doesn't.
I'm just kidding.
It doesn't look cool. It looks like you don't know how to blow dry hair. And I'm sorry if I'm going to trigger some hairdressers out there.
I've seen people do that, and I'm always like,
It's
you're
not
holding
cool.
a cup? What are you doing?
It's not pretty.
Yeah.
So it actually looks cool when you hold the blow dryer the right way, because I'm like, that person knows how to blow dry hair. And that's exactly what I told him. And he's like, after 20 years, I'm gonna take you up on this. But if I can master how to blow dry hair the right way, I'm not, or hold the blow dryer by the way that it was designed to be held, I'm not gonna do it. And he now, one of his biggest pet peeves at the salon
is when somebody holds it wrong.
Is when somebody holds the hair dryer wrong. So you can teach an old dog new tricks. That's where we're headed. But going back to your question, I think that my story is very different from from a lot of different hairdressers, because I was older.
Yeah.
Mature. I hate the word old.
But I still think it comes down to you having like experience. You were like,
it was
you were already
based.
like a businessman.
Right.
Yeah. Like I would have a totally, but here's the flip thing is, because you got into it later, I feel like it was probably harder to like screw up your client's hair, like melting those perms. You're like, oh, like when I was 18 years old melting perms, I was like, bitch, you paid me $3 and you didn't tip me. Like, what'd you expect?
But no, I did not care when I was in beauty school.
Yeah, but
I really didn't.
After
now, when I told this, especially that one client that I melted her hair, I said, I have good news and I have bad news. She's like, well, let's start with the bad news. What's the bad news? I said, well, the bad news is, and I opened the hot pocket. Hair was smoking. The hair was all in this little hot pocket. I said, the bad news is I melted all your hair off. She's like, oh my God, what's the good news? I said, the good news is that your services are free today. So, and she started laughing. I mean, yes, you came to a beauty school to have a beauty school student do your hair. Come on.
Yeah, it is.
It was a $5 hair highlight. So,
So last topic for today. And this is a topic that I also noticed, outside of the permission factor. And again, I came into to watching in the hair game and being part of the hair game, being part of artists after, 15, 16, 17 years of business experience and in an aggressive male-dominated business world. And then I was coming in a very feminine, female-dominated hair
came
world.
in hot.
And it was like the gear I had to shift into was a really different gear. And one of the areas where I'd be like, hey, listen, Kate, one of the things we need to do is drop all your men's cuts. And then the girls would be like, how am I going to do this?
Hyperventilating.
Yeah. I can't let
I'm
go
like,
of money.
you need to let go of this and let go of this. But it was really a conversation of collision. And Danielle brought this up at one of our conventions back in 2019 when I said, how many of you are people pleasers? And everyone raised their hand. And then Danielle came out from behind stage and said, listen, here's the deal. You're not people pleasers. You're conflict avoiders. So let's end on this show with this topic: collision and conflict with teams and with customers. Why is this so necessary for success? The willingness to collide, the willingness to have hard conversations, the willingness to not avoid the difficult game. Danielle, we'll start with you and with Carlos for our topic for today.
In the beginning, obviously, my tough conversations were with clients and avoiding like conflict there and being like, hey, I ended up doing way more work on your hair, or even like halfway into the appointment being like, this cannot be done, or explaining them like, I have to charge you another couple $100 like to just break even right now. And I think it was kind of a tough conversation because I thought if I have this conversation in the consultation, they're not going to want to come to me, blah, 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 blah. And now it's just very much like, here's what your hair needs. And I've kind of gotten over that. Whereas I still see a lot of artists doing hair in this scarcity mindset, and that affects what they can actually deliver to their clients. Right. And it's because they're not having clear conversations and consultations and communication as to like, here's your problem. Here's what I can solve. And I'm not going to try to give you a deal or skimp a few pieces of hair because it's not going to give you the end result that you're looking for. So and it's not even an uncomfortable conversation. It's standing in your power and saying, this is what you need. This is what I charge. If you don't like it, then you probably should have discussed this before they're actually sitting in your freaking chair. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that was like a big awakening for me, is like my consultation process has to improve so that I'm not stuck in these uncomfortable collisions or conversations with clients. It's unnecessary, right?
Yeah.
And then as I've grown as a businesswoman, like there's people that are going to work for you that are no longer a fit. And it's never comfortable keeping somebody on your staff that is no longer a fit. But what's even worse is keeping them there longer than they should be there. And it's our jobs to let them free, right? To recognize that sooner and say, I'm not only doing myself a disservice, I'm doing this person a disservice.
And the entire team a disservice.
And everybody a disservice. And it's hard. It's hard to like let people go. And I've had so many people that I've had some that I've let go and it's been amicable and it's been great and we still talk. And I've had some where I'm like, it's not great. And you probably don't like me. You probably talk shit about me. You probably never will like me again. But I knew for the better good of my company, my staff, and everybody around me that I had to let you go. Right? And those are really uncomfortable, tough conversations. So it's like it's inevitable, but the more you grow and the outcome that you see on the other side, you're like, it's uncomfortable, but I know the outcome on the other side is way more rewarding, so I'm willing to feel uncomfortable. Whereas most people don't believe in the outcome on the other side of that, so they stay living in this space of being uncomfortable. And I'm like, you need to trust your own processes.
Well, it's kind of sad when that comfort or that uncomfortability becomes comfortable.
Yep.
Yeah, it becomes almost like a purpose, like the drama of whatever it is, whether it's staff or whatever it is, like the drama becomes like this person's like purpose. And we see that a lot in the hair industry because it can be kind of catty and like...
Not kinda.
It is catty.
It's catty. But
I've never seen such aggressive shit in my entire life than the way hairstylists tack each other.
But it gives people purpose even in being fucking catty. You know what I mean? So it's
financial advisors will come after each other in the financial services world. Guys will come after each other with ruthless intent to burn your company to the ground. Like they'll make moves to bankrupt you. Women just make it personal. Like hairstylists and what I've experienced will light their whole fucking house on fire just with the hopes it'll light your house on fire. I'm like,
truth.
What are you fucking doing? Like, we went through some
truth.
crazy shit with this for years. Like, I was blown away. I was at the flip side. There's such unity in it.
Yeah.
Carlos, talk about this idea of conflict because you've had to manage and deal with large salons for long periods of time. You've watched the revolving door. You've also got to operate here as a trainer for 4 years, watching what we go through to collide with these artists, help them change. What's your perspective on this idea of collision and leadership?
You know what? Without collision, there can't be growth. If you don't collide, you don't set up a standard. If you're not having these difficult conversations with clients, with your staff and whatever, how are you going to build a culture to your salon? How are you going to be respected if you're not having these conversations with your staff when they're not abiding your rules and regulations that trickle into everything that you have to do within your salon? Because it's going into, this is our culture. Imagine if you would let people wear their Daisy Dukes and whatever not. Is that the kind of message that you want to convey to your to your guests? No. So in our salon, I continuously go by as like, you can no longer wear those shoes. You can no longer wear those pants. You can no longer wear your hair like that. Where's your fucking makeup? Why didn't you do this? We are beauty consultants. And sometimes these people come out rolled out like they just went on a 4-day Coke binge. And I'm like, no, bitches. Like, we have to show up. Standard. How you see me dressed is how I dress 99% of the time. At a very young age, I was taught by my parents that how you dress is how you will be treated by people.
Hide my Uggs.
Please, thank you. I saw those earlier. No, just kidding. They're actually cute. At least they're a platform. But anyways, it is so true. If we avoid these collisions, there is no way that your staff is ever going to be like, what's the standard? Well, let me tell you the standard. If you go off, if you veer away from the standard, we are going to have a conversation.
Yeah.
Same thing with clients. Hey, Carlos, I've been with you now for 10 years. Is there any way that you can give me a price break? I said, no, I can't. But you know what I can do for you is that I can refer you to this other stylist that, because in our salon, we have different tiers. And I'm like, if you can no longer afford my price, I want to see you stay within our salon. And this is the person that I would highly recommend for you to go to.
I think it goes down to like boundaries, right?
Absolutely.
I think the artists, they are the most guilty for letting their boundaries sway. And actually,
making exceptions is what we do a lot.
And you know what? And I will say small business owners do this all the time. And I experience it living in this house, and it drives me fucking bonkers. It's like, oh, these are my prices, but I'm only going to charge it to the people who I know I can afford it. So you walk into our home here and all of a sudden the window washing just went up 3 times, but across the street it didn't. And I'm like, wait, let me get this clear. These are your prices, but it's only your prices for people that you believe can pay
That's also doing shady business.
It is.
That is shady business.
It drives me bonkers.
Hey, but looks like he's got the balls to do it.
What?
Hey, you got the balls to do it. Shade guy took a $4,000 project, told me it was $20,000. I was like,
this is real.
Good job, markup.
But it's like, you gotta like stick to your boundaries. If you have a client that's like, hey, can you give me a price? You're kind of bugged, but you're like, I appreciate your business, but it's also a solid no.
But you also don't want to lose that client because that's still revenue. But if you if they came to you with a problem and you're offering them a solution, now it's up to them whether or not they want to remain a guest to your salon.
Right.
Yeah.
But you didn't let down that boundary. You didn't let down that standard to where now her friend's like, hey, just, the last time I was there with Carlos, I told him that I could no longer afford him, but he gave me like $100 discount. Blah, blah, blah. He's like, oh my God, I'm going to try it too.
Yep.
As soon as you break your frames is one of the things that I always say at the salon. As soon as we break our frames, it bites us in the ass every time. When I don't get a contract signed because I just upsold a client from, one of the stylists next to me is like, yes, and we're going to take $2,200 from you right now. He's like, done, take all my money, take it. And I'm like, fuck, she didn't sign a contract. What happens? She's the one calling 3 days later. This hair is shitty. My head hurts. It's a lot of hair. It's heavy. And I'm like, well, and
then you're like, oh, you were a referral and I just assumed.
We didn't do a contract. And you try to
it always bites you in the ass.
Every single time I break my frame.
Yeah.
It's something tied to a bad Yelp review or something somewhere because we allowed it to happen.
Exactly.
Guess what? Don't break the frames.
Yeah.
Stick to what you know.
Yep.
Grab the bull by the horns. Face collision. Have a conversation about it. And that's it.
Even with friends or family or anybody.
It applies to any realm in life.
I don't make Gail sign a contract. I'm not going to lie.
Well, here's what I would tell you. At DKW Styling Academy and what we're doing as a training team with me back in the mix, I like it. I feel a bit like a godfather.
I was like, you're
I feel a bit like the godfather in this entire game. It's actually fun for me because I have so many weapons and so many tools now at my disposal and networks and resource and opportunity to be able to back what we were doing originally. And now what we're able to do is going to dwarf anything we've ever done before. And the fun part is to watch, and that's going to happen because of the results and the success of artists that come to this place. Academy Convention's coming up. We have a limited 75 seats available for that open enrollment. to be able to come and participate in that 4-day event with us. I'm going to have you guys, I know I said last topic, but here's the last topic.
The last
which
topic.
if we look at what has been done here, from the beginning, I was like making moves that were not innovative in the industries I came from, but they were innovative in the hair industry, which is fun, right? So in banking, found McDonald's created the drive-through game with fast food based upon the banking world. One of the CEO or one of the executives that was at McDonald's at the time went through the bank teller. They did the drive-through and they implemented this as a strategy at McDonald's, which was the first fast food restaurant to ever do it. Not innovative in the banking world, but life-changing
in a different
in
industry,
the fast food world. So we did things like applications, contracts, all these things you're talking about, all these shifts, pricing, phone consultations, and all of this is part of one giant experience, which is the death and rebirth of an artist by coming to DKW Styling. And we've watched this happen. Carlos, you were talking about this earlier on our training we did today before we did this show about the change that happens at a primal level for artists that come to the Academy. Talk about what is different. You've been around a lot of different training ideas, concepts, and groups. What is different that you see here that has you stay not only as a trainer, but as a student / mentor / mentee in the mix? And then Danielle, same question. What do you see as the difference here versus everywhere else? And we're going to wrap this show up. Carlos.
So I think that at this show, it's no longer about coming to get a certificate. It's no longer about you put in X amount of hours and you're going to get this. It's accountability. You have to come in. First of all, you have to be naked and afraid coming into it. You have to expose emotion. You have to expose your true self, because if not, what starts happening is that we've had this happen over and over again. We have people with very high walls. They're never true to themselves, but those are also the people that lie.
Yeah.
They lie to themselves. They lie to their spouses. They lie to their staffs. They lie to themselves, saying like, I'm successful, but yet you only have $15 living paycheck to paycheck. There's nothing in your savings. There's nothing holding you, whatever. I think it's the lying.
Yeah.
We're not feeding into the lies. We're not feeding into and we're not afraid to say, you know what? We're not.
Yeah,
we're not
a fluffy pink bunny.
We're not the
company.
fluffy pink bunny. We were going there.
We were
going there.
We were.
Everything became so cold, calloused, and when I say cold and calloused, I'm knocking. Is there anybody behind this camera right now or behind this computer? We became so systematized, so whatever, that we lost what I called the human factor. The fact that we could care for each other in a world that we we're already swimming against the current, being a part of this system.
Right.
Because whatever the man said dictated for us to do thousands of years ago, being chained and shackled behind the seat, it doesn't work. Everyone's stressed. Everybody's crying. Everybody's, on a cup of coffee, bags under their eyes, and they're not even good bags. It's there's no Louis Vuitton Chanel's going under their eyes. But I think that just going back to your question, I think that we're now in a space where
the artist needs it more than ever.
That we need it. And every single company that I've trained with has always been here you go, high five, here's your trophy, here's this. I don't need a fucking trophy.
Yeah.
I don't need you to tell me where I'm succeeding. I need you to tell me where the hell I'm failing so that I can improve. You have to come truth to self. Stop lying to yourself. It's not what they told that it was going to be. It's time for us to, again, awaken those sleeping lions and lionesses within us.
We're kind of trained.
So no more trophies, transformation. This is what we're after, and the foundation of its truth. And this is the rebuild of artists. It's super exciting for me to be part of this new game of production with Natural Beta Rose and Profit with Big Money Stylist and Power with Warrior and DKW Styling, the brand, and the awakening of just the explosion of what this movement is across the country through men like Carlos and through salons like you run. Danielle, you have you backed this thing and you came back in. You went off and had 2 babies. And we love both those little baby girls. Even when they have nightmares and they're up all night long, we're juggling. I should say I'm juggling. Talk to me about AcademyCon. Academy's coming up in 3 months at the time we're recording this show. Why would an artist make an investment in themselves?
Like I said, I feel like our industry
come?
needs it more than ever right now. The self-proclaimed educators on the marketplace is running rampant. the certification levels and business tactics and social media tactics. It's like, oh, just buy. But it's not what the artist needs, and it's not what they're actually looking for.
We're a bunch of cows.
We're
a bunch of cows being herded into like, that's the next one. That's the next one.
And what the artist needs right now is freedom. Like truly. I was doing a fact map with our mastermind girls, and one girl, and I'm just going to share this story really quick. One girl said, I think I'm out of integrity with my marketing. And I'm like, wait, hold on. So we start going down this path. Turns out she's like, I actually am not wearing MBR. I go to some random girl. She's like, I go to some random girl. It's MBR or whatever. She's like, my assistant doesn't do it. And I go, you feel out of integrity with your marketing because you're not wearing NBR and you're lying to yourself. Right. And she was like, holy
that was her guilt.
Shit.
That was her guilt.
And so I think we are lying to ourselves in an industry of saying we're having success. We don't even call ourselves hairstylists anymore. We're an artist. That doesn't elevate you. Like it sounds cool, but we are filled in an industry of people lying to ourselves and still following into this story of like, you must become more, but like we're not actually elevating as an industry. Right. And so again, like I said, we're going down this course and this path of like, you're buying this, I'm buying this. Oh, she's doing this, she's popular, she's trendy, she's doing this. And it's not giving the artist what they actually need, which is be free, tell the truth, expose yourself. And in doing so, you're going to grow as a human and you're going to make moves in your business, and all this other stuff that you want is going to follow. But it starts with the artist just being honest with themselves. And so that's really what I think Academy Con unlocks in artists. Yep. It's an environment where it's like, gloves are off. Like you're in a safe place, and women start sharing and artists start sharing, and all of a sudden it's like, she's sharing this. Now I'm feeling compelled. We have women all the time like, I've never shared this with anybody but like my brother one time, like 10 years ago.
And then they open up to hundreds of people.
Yeah. And they're like, I feel so free. And then we see this time and time again at these particular events. And then it's like, that's truly what like takes our academy and goes, bonds it, and it's like, and that's what you can expect at Academy Convention, whether you're a student that's currently in our academy or you're listening to this podcast and you're like, yeah, I have been on the certified train or whatever, and I'm not where I want to be. So then you need to do something different, and we're going to create an environment for you to feel safe to choose a different path for yourself.
All right. So here's the wrap up of today's show. You ready? It's simple. You're either free or you're a slave. That's it. If you're a slave, here's typically what your game looks like. If you're at the top of the game in the hair industry, you work 5 to 6 days a week. You take 8 to 9 clients a day. You're exhausted as hell, and you celebrate the fact that you take home $100,000 to $150,000 a year, and that's the top of the food chain. What we're promising here is something different. Not only promising freedom, but freedom's going to look like the following: 3 days of work per week, 3 clients per day. One method, one technique called natural beaded rose, and $350,000 to $450,000 a year. You can choose it. You can have a life and be rich and have a great time, or you can be at the top of the food chain in the conglomerate of slaves that continue to call themselves hairstylists, while you slowly hate your art, hate your life, and hate the entire industry that gave you an opportunity. So we're here. We're not for everybody. If you are looking and knocking on the door here at DKW Styling Academy, and you are ready for a we experience, because that's what it is. It's not me, it's not Carlos, not Danielle, it's we. It's all of us and a team of 17 other trainers helping guide artists just like you to deeper levels of prosperity and power, and ultimately freedom. If you want that, well, check it out, dkwstyling.com or bigmoneystylist.com. Yes, the OG game is coming back. Business, marketing, and sales, bringing back the ghetto shit. Thank you so much, Carlos, for being part of the show
today. Thank you, guys.
Today.
Thank you for having me.
It was like, it got a little dark towards the end, but I liked it.
It's foolishness. Thanks, babe, for being on the show with us today, and that's a wrap.
That's a wrap.